Good afternoon. Welcome along to On the Whistle. Well. Sunderland are winning the league with 100 points. Listen, it's really nice to be able to do it on the whistle at the Stadium of Light with a big Sunderland win to talk about because we haven't actually done very many. Sat with Jeff Browne. Thanks again, Jeff, for doing it last week after Cardiff.
I was going to say, I'm not Jeff Browne.
Loads of positives from that game, but we were also a bit like, this wasn't exactly like emphatic, front foot, exciting football. They got the job done, that's good. But I'm a little bit concerned about some of it. Well, today it was by far the best performance since Tony Mowbray left, in my opinion. Obviously, there were some good wins, and the Mike Dodds were playing a very different way. For me, this reminded me of the Southampton game about a year ago. It's the Sunderland that we were promised. It's the Sunderland that we were told that Bris could deliver. And what an unbelievably exciting afternoon to see it in full flow.
Yeah, brilliant, emphatic. I was a little bit worried coming into the game just because Sheffield Wednesday have had a bit of hype. Danny Rowe, continuity, they've added a couple of good players, they've signed some players. They absolutely thrashed Plymouth. That was probably a little bit of a case of Plymouth being poor as well. When Alan Browne wasn't on the team sheet, I was a little bit concerned, but it didn't take long for those concerns to be sort of melted away. As we said against Cardiff, it's a first home win for Regis Labrie in the Championship, another clean sheet, so there's a lot of things he's ticked off in those first two league games that help a manager get up and running. A start is really, really important, especially when, coming off the back of such a poor season last season, to get those two wins under his belt, home and away, clean sheets. It's massive. It is absolutely huge. It's a really good start to his career with Sunderland.
And the performance today is so important to build off that. It's one thing to get results, but also to show the fans that there's something to get excited about. Like, we talk so much about how, and it's not always Sunderland's fault, but it's not always easy to, Sunderland don't maximise the Stadium of Light because it's too slow, the tempo's not right. And part of that's the opposition, the low blocks, they're taking the time out of the game. But today it was so refreshing to see Sunderland getting in the opposition's face. I mean, Barry Bannon's like, I know we joke because Andy Hinchcliffe's always saying how amazing he is, and it sticks in our thoughts a little bit, but he's a good player, right?
No, he is.
But like today, that midfield three were unbelievable. The athleticism, the tenacity, how direct they were. And it was like, you're looking forward to the next game. And that's, I think, such a massive thing. And it was so nice to see that high press because Sunderland have talked loads about being a high pressing team. We haven't always seen it.
No, absolutely.
And I know they're not going to do it in every game because every opponent's different and all that kind of stuff. But that was the biggest positive for me. And I thought, we'll go on the questions in a bit. But that midfield three was insane.
That midfield
Neil
three
ran the game. Job was so good. And Rigg is a joke.
It's ridiculous. That midfield three was absolutely fantastic. As I say, I was slightly worried when I didn't see Alan Browne's name on the team sheet, just for that stability, continuity, experience. This sort of game is sort of meat and drink for him, isn't it? So I wasn't necessarily worried about Chris Rigg coming in per se. It was just, have we lost a little bit with Alan Browne? That didn't happen. I thought it was interesting that Job played the more reserved of sort of the 10 and 8 axis. Neil was obviously the 6, Job was slotting in behind him and alongside him, but then going ahead of him. And then Rigg played in that 10, so he was making the 2 in the 4-4-2 when Sunderland was defending. I thought the discipline Rigg showed actually to do that was outstanding. As you say, it was an absolute joke. That pass to Clark for my end is second. The touchdown, oh my God. Barry Bannon, as we mentioned, is an experienced Championship operator. Give him time on the ball and he will hurt you. We've seen that over the years. He's done it to Sunderland. He didn't get any time on the ball today. I think Chris Rigg, Dan Neil and Joe Bellingham, they just out-muscled him, out-tacticked him, out-desired him. He was a bit alone in that midfield as well. I think Rowe possibly got his tactics slightly wrong, but I thought the way they dealt with that today was magnificent.
I thought that was where Sunderland won the game in midfield, and I think there were a few comments about Joe being named in the leadership group ahead of the Cardiff game. I think you see today, I get it, but his maturity and his tactical discipline is unbelievable for his age, and I think today was maybe a little bit of a statement. As you say, because Browne wasn't playing, he had to take on a bit more of a disciplined role, a bit more of a deeper role, and I think he showed what he's all about. We should get into the questions because we've been about 4 minutes, but we're excited and people will forgive us because we did so many sad on the whistles. We get to do happy
the last time we were here with Sheffield
well, exactly. What funny old game.
Blackburn Rovers, bloody hell.
Ethan says, has any SAFC coach ever tactically outclassed an opponent so well on their first game in the SOL? I don't want to bring the mood down, Ethan, but the answer is Phil Parkinson. Phil Parkinson, I think it was 5-0 against Tranmere, was his first game in the SOL.
Yeah, it was.
Sunderland were absolutely brilliant. Will Grigg, I think, had a really good game, and everyone was going, Phil Parkinson knows how to get the best out of Will Grigg. That's going to turn things around. Maybe there's a little bit of a lesson there that we shouldn't get too carried away. But we should also give, like I say, last week I was a bit like, this was good, but the general performance I was a little bit concerned about. Didn't really see Labris's stamp on it. This week was the complete opposite of that. You can see exactly how he set the team up. I think he caught roll out. I don't think he expected that level of intensity and that level of quality in the pressing. He'll earn his crust now because teams will be ready for it. The next time Sunderland play here, teams will be ready for it, and he's got to find different solutions. But that was a huge home debut for Bris, I think.
I think what we always say in this job, which I find very difficult, clearly, because I'm a madman, but you can't get too high and you can't get too low. And I would stress that the two performances, Cardiff and Sheffield Wednesday, whilst very different, both very positive, and hugely encouraging, but you do just have to temper it a little bit. And I don't want to put a negative slant on things because I'm generally very happy. I thought it was fantastic. Brilliant for my end to get those 2 goals. We'll come on to it. But Sunderland will still need a striker in the market.
Don't be
they
that
will
guy,
though.
man.
They will though. They will though. And you were going to say that. You know you were going to.
We don't. Honestly, man. Always
just putting it out there.
Always
putting it out there.
Yes, well done you. Sunderland need a striker. What amazing analysis. 10 out of 10. Chris Little says, great start, well played lads. Anyone think there was a bit of Wenger about Bris? Not suggesting he's that level of coach, but his calmness, tactical nous thinking. Chris, I did say that after he went to his first press conference.
Actually, it's documented you did say that.
Yeah. On that first one. Just his demeanour, I agree. And like, it was almost comical when the Roker end were repeatedly singing him for the wave. He was not having that. You are not getting away from Bris. And when he was introduced, actually, at the start of the game, and it was given a big welcome to Bris, and he was just stood there, arms folded.
He was asked about that in the presser, wasn't he? Like, and I don't think even in the question he didn't really understand what was going on.
You are not getting away from the Bris. But yeah, I really like his temperament because sometimes it's going to frustrate us a little bit because someone will lose a game and he won't be particularly emotional and he'll just be like really measured and he'll be like, and at the same time though, when they win, he's not going to get carried away, and he certainly wasn't. And I think that is important because it is an emotional club. We get emotional, fans get emotional. I think to have a leader who doesn't really get sucked into that is going to be really, really important. So I agree in terms of, I said there was something quite studious about him, something quite professorial. You aren't getting away from reducing Bris, unfortunately.
No, you're not. But I think the thing that we've noticed about Bris in his short summer time, he's just so dialed in, isn't he? He's so focused on what happens on that football pitch. It's almost like Bris is there and everything else is just happening around him and he's just not bothered because he's concentrating on that ball, where that defender is, what Serkin's doing, what Clark's doing, and that's just what he's concerned about, which is a great strength in a way, because sometimes this football club can be a tad over emotional.
And I think and I think there were times where we sit here and go, we'll feel like we needed a bit more from him and stuff, but I do agree with that. So let's go on to the next question. A couple of people asked this actually, but we'll go with Josh. Says, will Rigg be keeping Browne out of the 11 for Burnley in other games if he continues to play like he did? I think this is such an interesting question. I actually asked Bris about it and completely swerved it, which was fair enough.
There will be games when sometimes
Browne was really good against Cardiff. Like we all said that's exactly what we hoped to get from Alan Browne. Used the ball well, picked up good positions, experienced, canny. But can you drop Chris Rigg after that game?
That was a sensational
I don't know if you can. That was a proper breakout.
He got our man of the match, second game in a row actually, because he did it.
It could have gone to anyone in that midfield, I would say, but he was. But given that it was his first league start this season,
possibly could have gone to Clark as well.
Possibly, yeah.
But I just think he's amazing. I think the desire, the quality. I think we spoke in pre-season, didn't we, about how it was possibly his shirt to lose. He then comes and plays against Cardiff. He comes on, on from the bench. Browne starts. You could forgive him for getting a little bit miffed, a little bit annoyed. Turns up against Preston, probably the best player on the pitch despite Sunderland losing the game, and then he gets the nod today. And guess what? He turns in another high-quality performance. Doesn't sulk, doesn't get on with it. The desire's still there. Sunderland 4-0 up. He's chasing balls into the corner. He's all over Barry Bannon like a rash. I just think he is so talented. Don't get me wrong. But as with a lot of players at Sunderland, it's actually his mentality which is the most impressive thing.
I actually think Browne will probably play against Burnley because it's a completely different game. It's a completely different opposition. We've seen what Burnley have done in their first 2 games. You might need Browne for that game, and you might need Job further up the pitch as athleticism to help you get up the pitch and press. But it kind of doesn't matter. We're going to see loads of Rigg. That's a performance that says I am now a first-team player. I think we're going to see him start loads of games.
As well, what Rigg's got on his side, and I asked Bris about this after Preston, is that Bris sees him. He can play in the midfield next to Neil. He can play off the right-hand side as a replacement for Roberts. And now we've seen him also play as that second striker / number 10. So he is going to play games, and it's clear that he's trusted in those positions. Perhaps maybe not alongside Neil as much yet. I think he'll get there, but that's a strength he's got. three positions he can essentially play in.
Tony asks, what's more important, signing a striker or holding on to Jack Clark? It's a tricky question. For me at the moment, it's still holding on to Jack Clark.
I think you've got to.
Because I think that we all know that Sunderland need a striker, but and if they don't get a striker, they're probably not going to finish in the top 6. And obviously Tony knows that, asking the question. But I just think that Sunderland can play without a top class striker and be fairly competitive. I still think that Clark going from this team takes so much away that I think that'll have a hugely detrimental impact. Now the positive is Roberts is back at his best.
He is.
Rigg's emerging as an attacking threat. Job's playing well. So I don't think Sunderland is, at the moment it's only 2 games, but at the moment they're not as one-dimensional. They're not as dependent on Clark, and that's exciting. But right now, I think losing Clark would be really detrimental, but obviously they need to try and do both. But if you had to give me,
too much to ask for both?
If you had to give me one, I think I would keep Clark and go with what you've got. Should we talk about Meander? Loads of people asking about Meander.
Yeah,
did brilliantly, and I thought it was really interesting here listening to Bris talk about him there. He was so revealing about how Bris sees the game. He spoke about Meander and basically talked about his journey from coming back from Hibs on loan where he barely played and getting into start and learn a lineup, and he said it's all about wanting to learn. He asks me every day about what he needs to improve. He talks to his teammates about what he can do better and what they can do for him. He said constantly looking at his clips, constantly talking, and he said today was his reward. And I think he was so obviously sending a message to the squad there in terms of I've got no favourites, I've got no, if you learn and listen, you will get in the team. And I think it's a big early win for Bris because that is pure development. Obviously it's down to Meander, he's gone and done it, but the fact that he has gone at the head of the queue in the space of a couple of months, which we would never have predicted, we would have thought Bris would have started, wouldn't we? I think it's revealing in how Bris wants to go about things, and I think that's a big early win for Bris.
Against Cardiff City after the game, after Meander missed that chance, he was overheard as saying that was going to keep him up at night, and I think that's how much it means to him. And I think what's hugely impressive is that Bris has stuck with him, yes, but he's also come in with a mindset as right, I'm going to prove. And that first goal it's a quality finish. It's superb off the left foot. It's fantastic. But the second goal, as you mentioned to me when we were upstairs covering the game, that one's almost more pleasing in a way because he's made that run. It's the desire. I thought he put himself about a great deal as well. Not every game will be that open, and he might not have as much joy as he does in every championship game because there's some mean championship defences, some experienced players, and he might struggle. But Bris has acknowledged that. He said that he's not going to be able to do it for the majority of the championship season as first choice, but huge step forward in his career. I mean, he's been at the club over a year actually. He signed, I think, 23rd of July last year, and he's had to wait all that time for his first Sunderland goal. Hasn't had that many appearances. The Hibs loan was bizarre. So at 19, to experience the stadium, the love of the crowd, having worked so hard for it, I think it's an amazing story.
I think that second goal, nobody scored that since Ross Stewart's left. That was the big thing for me. The first goal was a lovely hit, it's brilliant. But we know there are players in the squad who can produce that kind of goal. That second one, Joe, we know has the instinct for it, but he's obviously not going to play there. So that was why I made that comment to you about being so encouraged. We'll just end with one point from Daniel, who says, when injuries unfortunately inevitably hit and some of the first 11 names on the team sheet are no longer available, are the players behind them good enough ready to step in? I think it's a good place to end because we're not getting carried away. I think the answer to that is I think some of them are. I think the Mundell, he's not there yet, but has made real strides. I've watched every game he's played since pre-season. He's a different animal at the moment, and I'm quite excited about him. I think you can see how Shishi's going to make an impact. Roosen, I actually think he's doing all right as an impact sub. He's causing problems. He's energetic. So I think there are players within that group who are ready to come in and make an impact, but I think we still need some additions. You need a striker. The winger situation depends a lot on Clark. Also full-back. I think that's the position on the pitch where there's the biggest drop-off. Like if Hume got injured, everything has to change, and that's not a great place to be.
I think there's been a slight bit of panic, and I do understand it because obviously Sunderland lost against Preston and it was a much changed 11, and we'd seen that 11 maybe not cope too well obviously against Bradford City in pre-season, but that 11 or the 11s that played together, obviously a couple of players have left now, but they were never going to play together in a league game. You'd be very surprised if Sunderland start 11 for a league game was that heavily rotated. I think individually some of these players like Adil, like Roosen, as you've seen, can come in and step in to a first team environment where the squads or the start 11's relatively settled. I think that is a possibility. However, as you say, you would want a couple more in the transfer window.
But it's all good, so we're finishing on a positive note. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for sending your questions in. That has been very enjoyable.
The best on the whistle we've done for a long time.
Who knew that we could do enjoyable on the whistle? Thanks very much everyone for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Keep an eye out for future games. Send your questions in. we're loving doing these.
Yeah,
We want to
they're
keep doing them. So
one of the best
please keep watching them, send your questions in. And
Podcast on Monday.
Podcast
We'll
on Monday.
do this all again.
We'll see you then. Thanks very much.
Cheers.